we're looking for. Whoops.
Oh, there
Okay.
it goes.
All right, we're in.
Very cool.
All right. This is Crockett 36, and here we are with the good captain. And it is so good to talk to. I've talked to the good captain a couple of times and really found him to be a kindred spirit in a lot of
Yeah.
ways every time we talk. And he is a expert. I don't know if you've ever seen his channel, but it's a wealth of information about particularly first off, Classic, which is, if you haven't tried it, still a great game to this
Yeah.
day. A lot of fun and a great introduction. Um, and then also you've done series on the anniversary edition as well as 1914.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah. So Ryan, would you? I'm sorry, the good captain. Would you
Oh,
please
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you please tell us some biographical information as much as you want to share?
Right. Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me, and thanks for that warm introduction. You certainly did your homework, and I appreciate that. Um, my real name is Ryan Vosnick, so I don't care about any of that. So, I was born in the last week of 1985, the day after Christmas. So I think Axis and Allies had been out about a little over a year before I was born. And so I sort of, in that sense, arrived a little late to the game. I picked up a copy of Classic in, I think, 94, using my allowance money uh, from a shelf off a toy out of Toys R Us. And um, I'll say this in the larger context, because Crockett was gracious enough and he said, take as much time as you want to go through your bio. And one thing that up until recently was central to my life was military service.
Oh,
Yeah, I was for whatever reason, I remember where I was and what grade I was in. I was in the third grade when I decided that it was like a calling to me. I didn't know which branch I wanted to be in, but I knew I wanted to be in the military. And every aspect of my life sort of centered around what I now, the term I know now to be is war fighting. So I did anything and everything I could to just sort of prepare myself for uh, what I knew was coming. Sorry, my mic's being a little funny. There we go. And so I joined Boy Scouts, made it all the way to Eagle. I was active in student government through high school. I big on sports and anything where I could get leadership. But also, I was also interested in the technical side, so I studied technical manuals. I have bookcases filled with military books from strategy to first-hand accounts, so I could understand what was happening and what it took to fight in a war. And this leads to board games. Board games, I think, and I felt even when I was that young were a great simulator. And so Axis and Allies, of course, it's got that beautiful front cover, and you're just like, oh, that's the thing that I want. So I played it and I enjoyed it, and but I only played it for about 3 years, from about fourth grade to about I guess I did play it into high school because I remember in '01, in 2001 when Europe and Pacific came out. So I played with my buddies up until about then, but then I sort of left it behind
yeah.
for a game called Advanced Squad Leader, which
Oh,
is an
yeah.
old, okay, you know it. This will make things easier. But for those of you who don't know, this is an old Avalon Hill game that is squad level, individual leaders, individual weapons, and this to me was really kind of the niche board game I was looking for because it did a pretty good job, very rules heavy, which is part of the reason why I'm back with Axis and Allies now, but it really did kind of extrapolate the effectiveness of, say, something like a 40 millimeter Bofors versus a 50 caliber machine gun
Wow.
versus a 60 millimeter mortar. You could kind of see what they were getting at here. And a lot of those weapon systems are still in use in the world today. So I'd like to have this kind of perspective. There was a strange time in my life where I was in the active duty army and in ambush position, you initiate an ambush with your most casualty producing weapon. And there can be confusion over do I start with the M240, a medium machine gun, or do I blow a claymore mine, or do I let them walk over the mines that I laid? You know, what's the more effective? And so there'd be talks and discussions about this thing. But yeah, so love of board games um, uh,
Wow.
was
Wow.
there obviously
That's
for this application, but so and then this thing kind of went dormant for a while. Obviously, Access and Allies. Now I'm going to get back to Access and Allies.
sure.
Um, I promise this will be interesting.
Not put it well for someone with real military experience. This is crazy. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
awesome.
By the way, I have two books. I'll be extraordinarily kind to anybody who orders them on Amazon and produces them.
You have books?
Yeah, I have published two about this military experience, and one of
No
them,
kidding.
yeah, I might make my own video about that. I don't want to take up all your interview time here, but
Sure.
or I'll make my own video. I meant to say, but my so fast forward to 2017, I'm getting married, and I'm going to really compress this story because it is really long. But my wife got really sick, or they thought
Oh,
she was really sick,
oh,
and it was bad enough where, and she's fine now, by the way. And
good.
the
Okay.
diagnosis was actually a misdiagnosis. They
Mm,
misdiagnosed her for something way worse than what she had, but it took almost a year to figure this out. So we had this time where you just come home and you're just like, oh my God, I just got married to this woman, and now you're like facing this
yeah,
life-threatening thing.
right.
And it was, I don't know what sparked it, but I was like, Axis and Allies. I dusted this old classic off the shelf,
Wow.
and I was like, here, sit down, let's play this. And she, I could barely get her to do anything, but I was like, just focus here. This is how you
Wow.
play. I taught her how to play, and we started playing.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, and I have this photo of
Wow.
her, which one day I should put up somewhere in public, because it captures everything that we all know is somebody who's captured by Axis and Allies. You get this intent look, this 1,000-yard stare into the board. She's computing, how do I beat my husband at this game? And
That's awesome.
we stacked many, many games, and that was my reintroduction into the game, and I couldn't put it down. We couldn't put it down
Wow.
for months, but it spun out of control from there.
Well, I have to say that is the tenderest Axis and Allies story I
Yeah,
have ever heard. That's
yeah, isn't that
great.
right? Yeah, it's nuts to me too. Wouldn't be
Huh.
here but for that.
Yeah. 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 Huh. Um, so you, I think, live on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm out here 45 minutes outside of LA, so
Okay.
far away
Sure.
from
Sure. And would you
general
like to
population.
say what you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. So obviously not in the Army anymore. I did 5 active,
Okay.
5 reserve,
No kidding.
well, National Guard, but and then I transitioned into sales, and from there, for the last since 2020, since the pandemic, I work at a family business called Vertex Water Products. We manufacture reverse osmosis systems in water coolers. So I'm learning every day how to take over and run a business. Basically, I'm
Wow.
not a numbers cruncher like some of your others guests.
Okay. Okay.
Um, the skills I've learned in the Army are helpful every day. Some more of a leadership thing, I think.
Sure.
But yeah, production and sales as well. So,
Well, you are the first veteran that I've interviewed,
oh, is that
which
right?
has,
Yeah.
as far as I know, neither Andrew nor Arthur Bomber Harris nor Gamerman was in this service. So
Mm.
that's I've always wondered whether some of the top tier players or what some of the
Mm.
best minds were actually had actual combat experience. So or not. I mean, Army experience, not combat.
Right. For the
Uh,
record, I did not deploy.
okay.
I, I had orders, but I was actually just a very quick.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had orders to go to Iraq to clean up the mess from not, yeah, I mean figuratively, to
Yes.
manage the extraction of vehicles and equipment. And you will be surprised. I thought that could have been I think they call it stop loss. I was on my way out, and my boss looked at me, full bird colonel, and he looked at me. He looked at my immediate superior, and then he said, "Okay, I really don't care what lieutenant we send over there. Vosnik, if you can find somebody to replace you, they'll go." And oh my goodness, as soon as everybody heard, the other lieutenants heard that I was going to Iraq, they were all around me, highest
What?
bidder. They wanted to go. Oh
No
yeah,
kidding.
it's a great career advancement, because in the
Wow.
Army you wear a patch on your right side that is basically, you wear a lot of your resume on your uniform in the Army. It's not so in the Marine Corps and some of the other branches. And we make fun of each other for that, but I like that the Army does that, and one of them is to put a patch on your right shoulder with the unit that you deployed with, and everybody wants that patch, and it's great for career advancement. So the lifers, the people who wanted to stay in for life, were I got the pick of the litter. So,
My
and I think,
son, my
yeah.
son was in the 101st.
Oh,
He was
lovely. Yeah.
part of a 3-year stint in the air assault.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it hit right during COVID,
Hmm.
so a good 9 months of his service was in a barracks.
Yeah.
Um, and he wanted to go into the field. He said the field was the best part of the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
he
yeah.
wanted to deploy because it was where the money was.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
okay.
um, but they never did. And he got out after the first. Um,
Well, it's interesting. Another sidebar, and I promise we'll get to Axis Analyze, but the 80s, I was attached to the 82nd for 3 weeks for airborne training. So I don't know if did he go
it,
through airborne school, or did he, I think air assault, they fast rope from helicopters.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
A lot of
yep,
fun.
yep.
Yeah.
He was at I think he was at Benning and then at Campbell.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Benning. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Very warm in the summers.
Right, right, right. Okay, so Axis Nellis.
Okay. Yeah.
So I know, by the way, that I'm guaranteed that my audience is going to eat this stuff up. So it's awesome. So
Okay.
really
Great.
good. Um, so you start playing again, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and you, I think, at one point in time were part of some sort of tournament in Southern California. Maybe even
Yeah.
organizing it, right?
Yeah, I still run it now. The folks who were the core still hasn't come back from COVID. I don't know where they are. By the way, if you all are
Uh,
listening to this, you got to get back in the saddle. Water's warm. Uh,
I like it.
yeah, I run it now because nobody else will.
Mm.
But yeah, it's called Strategicon. It's a very large. I call it the West Coast Gen Con, but there's no access. The Access Knowledge footprint has shrunk quite a bit. It used to be
Oh,
quite large. There used to be up to 15 or 20 attendees back, I'd say 10 years ago. And now, yeah, eight or nine maybe if we're
okay.
on a good event. But we had Dave Jensen show up on the
Oh,
last one, so
nice,
he
nice,
played Guadalcanal and just crushed everybody. So
nice. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I run that 3 times a year. It's excuse me, President's Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day weekend every year.
Oh,
So
wow, that's
yep,
awesome.
there, rain or shine.
Yeah, yeah. And do you do a lot of tabletopping, or is it mostly online right now? Besides those three events,
Okay, so I'll take it however I can get it. And yes,
there you go.
I have folks come to the house sometimes, set up a board game, and we'll play it over the board. And of course I go to those tournaments when those are all, of course, over the board. But um, if I'm not working out, taking care of the wife and family, I'm playing Axis and Allies. It's really just so as of right now, I have 5 online games. So if
Oh,
yeah, I play multiple ones at the same time. So if you're asking me which one is there more of, it's online, but that's strictly because of bandwidth. You can
sure.
get so much more done
Yeah.
and get so many more games going
Oh,
because
yeah.
they take up zero space. Zero
Sure.
space.
Yeah, yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Very
yeah.
good. Very good. So let's get into your preferences. So which version do you prefer?
Oh, classic. Yeah, of
Classic.
course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And
There's nothing that's gonna beat that. I much sympathy and love for all the other versions in the canon, but as a game, I know it's not a great historical simulator. That's fine, but I mean,
yep. Yep.
as a game that could compete with the likes of Risk and Monopoly,
Mhm.
that version, yeah, that's it
Yeah, yeah.
for me.
And what about side? Which side do you prefer?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, that's a good question. I would say, boy, I guess it's the sands sort of shift. I used to, well, first, my heart's always in I always like the Allies beating the crud out of the
Good.
Axis. Okay,
Excellent. That's what we'd
that's
like to hear.
when I was a kid. I'd play myself because, of course, there's no one else to play with in the house, and I always made
Sure.
sure the Allies creamed them. Okay, that being said, up until recently, I would have said the Axis because They are the more challenging side to play. They're far less intuitive, in my opinion, and perhaps the game is imbalanced in favor of them, especially if you're not using the restricted attack.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I've spent a ton of trigger time on the Axis because
Okay.
usually when I play, I always let the opponent. I'm just gracious that I'm grateful that somebody is playing the game. So I just say, you pick the side.
Right.
I'll play anything. You just pick the side.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So, but I like the allies. I do. I like the logistics of the allies, the
Yeah.
coordination involved. If you're playing a crack Axis player, the allies are actually very fun and difficult to play. It
Yeah.
should be anyway. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And then which nation of the allies would you? And
Um,
after that, which unit is your favorite?
okay, yeah, it would have to be. I know I'm the best at Russia for the Allies, but I like to play the UK. I don't care for the United States, and obviously U.S. veteran here.
Sure. Sure.
Nothing against the country. I love the country, but
Sure. Sure.
um, and then the unit is transport. I know you were asked that because you asked all the other fellas that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
my favorite unit is the transport because, and a close second would of course be the infantry, but the transport because it's such a threatening piece. It's incredible what even just one can do. If you put one with one infantry, now that guy has to think about where are all those places that thing can go, and you might have other supporting units. Like an infantry activates so many other options. If there are battleships, it activates offshore. If there are carriers with planes, your opponent has to consider the effects of that single soak infantry with the planes behind it, or
Right.
bombers, or the territories it can capture in the following turn that it could move after. If, for example, if that U.S. transport with one infantry moves to Africa, it can just pick up all those German territories I worked so hard for if there's not enough there to stop it. So
Sure.
the transport seems to be my favorite for that reason. I know that Russia has no access to them, and
Sure.
yeah, so infantry is a close second.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, and this one, I know that some G40 guys are
Oh yeah.
allergic to the term, but what do you think of technology in the
Oh
in both classic, and you can expand from there.
yeah.
How
Yeah.
important is it? How crucial should it? Some guys avoid it like the plague.
Yeah. That's a great question, and I'll just separate classic from basically any other version that has it.
Yeah,
Classic, I do feel I have a video on my channel that discusses this, but
you do.
okay, I do feel that the Axis, in a gentleman's game between grandmasters, it's a good it's a good Hail Mary for the Axis, especially if the Japanese players know how to kind of dial things in. You can make a real mess of things, or you can go out in a fantastic ball of fire.
Sure.
And I've always thought that was just the loveliest part of that game I call it right when you feel like you're about to lose and before you consider concession.
Yeah, yeah.
Just throw all your dice in the bin, and if you did it right, Japan should have some bombers on the board, and you might be
Sure.
able to pull out of it. And you might not. I've lost games where I've caught heavy bombers and still lost, and I just
Sure.
loved that. And I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
wondered if that was built into the game. So
yeah.
yeah, I know we're coming to that question later, but anyway, with regards to the techs in other games, I can only really speak for Anniversary, although I know Global is very similar to the mechanisms of Anniversary. And for that, I am fairly critical. I do feel, and the most critical aspect I feel about it is I feel like there's too many, combined with the fact that it's an instantaneous effect. And
Yep.
there's just no way for your opponent to, like, if I'm inflicting it on my opponent, I don't feel good about that. Like, oh man, now I have long range aircraft, I think is one of the more underrated, like, and long range aircraft in conjunction with defenseless transports. Sorry,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah.
There they all go.
Sure.
Or
Sure.
maybe you only have one destroyer there and I'm willing to risk my bomber to not get killed by it and nuke everything behind it. So,
Sure.
um, probably it'd be okay with some tweaks, but I think there maybe cut it in half. I think six is the right number, so there's not so many variation. Or I think you brought this up, or one of your interviewees brought this up. Maybe change the way in which it is activated so that it's not instant. Oh, I think that's what you said, or one of
Yes.
you all said was a turn later. I said,
Yep.
okay, that
Yep.
might be worth.
Gamer man said that. Yep.
Yeah, I could get on board with that. I could
Yeah.
get on board with that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for that.
Yeah. Um, let me just let me just so what do you think about what's going on with the community right now? And
Yeah.
what developments from Renegade as well as launch a little bit ago, Beamdog as well as accessknowledge.org.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot to cover. Let's see. Beamdog, I'll just knock these out in sequential or in the order in which I have the
Chronological.
least. Yeah, I have the least
Sure.
to say about Beamdog. 1942 to me is sort of a. I look at it as sort of a. Well, I'll get to that at the end. I've been
Okay.
grinding through all these other games for whatever reason. 42 second edition. Yeah, okay, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Um, accessknowledge.org. You didn't mention the Facebook pages. Actually, I look at the Facebook
Oh, yeah,
pages
yeah.
as
That's right.
okay. Those
Yeah,
those are love you all, but boy,
yeah.
you get some weird comments on there. And
Sure.
I look at the .org as sort of a mature, where the mature players or more mature players would go to get some serious, to have more serious discussions.
Sure.
Um, and then with regards to Renegade, I did sign an NDA. I think I could say that.
Yeah.
There's a stigma around these NDAs. So I saw that question on your list and I kind of prepared this.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope someone from Renegade's listening to me not talk about Renegade and hopes that I didn't set it up for this interview, but I come from a game system called Advanced Squad Leader, as I said earlier, and they do not have NDAs. In fact, they went the complete opposite direction.
Oh,
They encourage their scenario designers and authors of and all of the playtesters, everything um, to be open about it in hopes that they kind of sell the product for them, so to speak.
sure.
And one of the ways they do this is a periodical. About 3 or 4 times a year, they release it's once a season. So yeah, 4 times a year, they have this thing called the Operations Magazine. This is multi-man publishing,
Yeah.
and I cannot tell you how much we all are just on the edge of our seats to
No
get
kidding.
those magazines. Yeah, and
Huh.
just even in this is like '05 to probably 15. I got a stack of them back here, and I just love going through so they do scenario analysis. So
Yeah.
in Axis and Allies terms, it would be, you know, Global 42 or yeah, it could be Global 42. Any version, let's just use Global 1942nd edition. So Global 1942nd edition, and it'll be like flashy article title, the J1. Is it
Yeah.
worth it?
Right.
Question mark. And then they'll have people who know about this pitch in. It'll be like, here's what so and so, and they'll quick
Wow.
resume of who this person is, and then what they think about it, and here's someone who disagrees, and there'll be color photos of like
Wow.
situations. And to me, it just seems like an untapped opportunity. I would love to see some kind of you know, uh, go the other direction with it, Renegade. I think
Yes.
there's a
Yeah, yeah.
there, and
Sure.
you'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
I have been involved with playtesting, as you know.
yeah,
And
actually, yeah, right.
and at some point in time, I had said to the fellows, I said, you may not be aware of this, but there are people out there that will devote their time
Yeah,
and gobs of their time
yeah,
to give you for free what
yeah.
you can't afford to pay.
And I'd be one of them.
And sure enough, on Tabletop Simulator,
Yeah, tabletop.
there's a version of Imperial Borders and there's a version of War Room. There's actually two
Ah,
versions of War Room, um, and there's one of Imperial Borders, all for free, all done for the love of the game. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just out there, and and
Hmm.
if Renegade could get their hands around that, it would be unlimited. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
just it's amazing.
Well,
So,
I know a little bit about something like that. There's a game platform called Vassal. It's just basically an open, it's just essentially think of it as this. Like, if you took a picture, it's a high resolution scan, I should say, of the, let's just say Fortress America. You have a
Hmm.
high resolution scan of Fortress America, and then they actually have high resolution scans of the pieces. And it's just that's just it. And they put a dice roller at the top,
Oh,
and then a card pull. They have the cards you can pull for the reinforcements for the USA over here, and that's it.
wow.
There's nothing that snaps into place like AAA, so it's
Sure.
probably inconvenient for certain things, but
Yeah.
otherwise, there it is. You can just click, drag, move things wherever you need to,
Wow.
and that's constantly available. That is, and it's very easy to make one. I'll just
Huh.
say that. It's very easy to make one.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
so
good.
if Tabletop doesn't do it, I'm sure Vassal will.
So what would you if the world were, if all these different places were listening to Ryan,
Oh yeah.
where would you see Access Knowledge going, and the community?
Well, yeah. I'm in this weird position where I might know more than I can say.
Okay,
So
so are you involved with the North Africa? Is that what I'm
yeah,
getting here? You
I think
are.
I can say
Okay.
that.
You
I'll just take the risk and say
okay.
yeah. So I
You
can't.
okay, so you can't say too much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For
All right.
better or worse, I
How
hope
about
not. But
a thumbs up, thumbs down?
well, I don't know, and I
Okay.
don't think I'm worried. I'm not really
Okay.
someone who worries about this stuff, but
Okay.
I think it was a good team, great people.
Yeah.
So everything looks good, and I, I think that the future looks bright, and I would like to see again. I think as weird as it sounds, if they could just, I don't know if it's stigma, but whenever I engage with people, and I'll throw a name out there, Krieghund, Brian
Oh
Chapman.
yeah. Sure.
I've heard him explain. Someone pressed him on what's the deal with all these NDAs, and he sort of normalized it and said, "No, this is normal." To me, that's not normal.
Yeah.
So I really do. I'll just double down and say if I hope the future is less, you know,
Corporate.
yeah. There's players who are afraid to say things.
Sure.
I had somebody who didn't want to share um, information for a defunct game, or I don't want to say they didn't want to share, but the Imp Games is defunct, and I'm trying to get a map of East and West
Oh.
from Imp Games, and there's still some fear. There's this NDA fear
Oh
kind
wow.
of that permeates the community to some degree, and I think that could stand to get out of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Open source would be better. Yeah.
And I think
And
there's money. I think you could monetize it. I think making a periodical and a magazine,
yeah.
I think Renegade
Yeah.
could pull the lever and cash in on that. Yeah.
Oh, I've said it repeatedly to the people that need to hear it, but
Okay.
this
Oh,
is
well,
a
good for you.
community. This is a community of adults that
Yeah.
every birthday want to spend money, and
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
not giving them enough places to spend their money.
That is well worded. That's actually fairly brilliant. I really like the way you phrased that. I might have to adopt that.
Yeah. Yeah. Feel
Uh,
free. Really.
yeah, that's well done. Yeah,
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah.
So if anybody in positions of power, I'm the good captain and I approve this message.
Very good, very good. So,
Yeah.
I by the way, I am going. At least the plan is right now to go to Gen Con in
Ah,
August. First time ever. I'm going with a guy named Carnivale. He's been on my channel once,
yeah.
but looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Tom Gale from Nightingale Games might caravan with us.
Yeah.
And it was, if you're ever last minute able to get out there to
Yeah.
uh, um, so I think you actually
Fun.
do love history because
Oh
at one
yeah.
point in time you went to Normandy.
Oh yes. Yeah. Should I talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead and
Okay.
talk about your love. I do want to this is a great story. It's
Yeah.
sad but great, but also I want you to, if you can, connect. I mean, I think we connect history with this game. That's one of the reasons I
Yeah.
play it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, absolutely. In fact, okay, there's a lot to say, so much so that it's all clogged up here. I'm I'm currently doing a lot of games of D-Day. I'm about to release a
Oh,
small
oh
series
yeah.
of videos on my channel about Axis and Allies D-Day, and yeah, I visited Normandy. Now I got I got kicked out of the tour because I got COVID basically as soon as I got there. Now, interestingly enough, I am weeks away from going. I recouped my losses,
Yep.
reset a date, and it's in 3 weeks.
Oh,
So
wow.
I know, and so I'm taking my
Wait,
D.
you're not going to Victor Davis Hanson, are you?
No, I would love. I hope is he there?
Uh,
I hope to run
he's
into him.
going. I was supposed to go on the trip,
Oh
and
yeah, the
he's
80th.
leaving on
Yeah,
the
80th
he's leaving on
anniversary.
the 26th of May, and he'll be there
Oh,
till the 4th of June.
okay. I'm
So
going a bit
yeah,
earlier.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm bringing my copy of D-Day because the map I use anyway, it's a custom map. Doesn't the old one looks like a battle map, right? The one that came
Yeah,
out of the game, I should say. And
sure.
you've got all these locations and cities and things. So
Yeah,
uh, yeah, and of course I know too much about the 101st, the 82nd,
sure.
the 29th Infantry Division, and the National Guardsmen that stormed the beach and everything for the U.S. sectors and the Canadians and the Brits. Yes, very much looking forward to this, and I do intend to. I don't know if I will actually have time to cut a video for the channel when I'm out there, but I know where I'm going to get at least my picture taken holding a copy of D-Day or even laying out the map. And it's uh, the Pegasus Bridge has a coffee shop right next to it. Um, that's famous and in the family that was still that it was owned and operated by a family that still owns and operates it, I believe. So I
No
was gonna.
kidding.
That's my
Wow.
and to add just to roll this even further, the first battlefield tour I ever did was Arnhem, the
Oh,
6th Airborne in Arnhem.
oh, wow.
And yeah, and that was just when you get a good tour guide with the photos, and they can the Europeans just kind of keep a lot of that stuff as is. They won't even patch holes in the
Wow.
building where or
No
holes like
kidding.
yeah. So there's HE
Wow.
where high explosive rounds from German tanks exploded into the sides of houses.
Wow.
They'll just leave it there. They'll just leave that crack in the wall. It's nuts.
That's crazy.
And yeah, so I bought and I was there on the 17th of September, which, as many of you might know, was the day Arnhem, uh, the battle began, essentially the Operation Market Garden. And you wouldn't know that that ended in a British defeat for the 6th Airborne. Those people celebrate it like it's the 4th of July here.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
6th Airborne flags draped out of every business down
Mm,
I mean, the unit flag. So
right.
I bought myself an Arnhem, a 6th Airborne Arnhem flag, and since the 6th Airborne was at D-Day, I'm
Yeah.
definitely bringing my 6th Airborne flag to
Yeah.
D-Day this tour.
One of the things I always think of, just like in Axis and Allies in the game itself, uh, when you uh, when we call something a defeat, obviously it didn't
Mm.
accomplish its mission, but because it engaged the troops and brought resources into that theater, it actually always enables
Yeah,
another theater to succeed more than it would have.
right.
Which is my big excuse why I say that the bombing raids, as much
Mm.
as they were, I'm watching Masters of the Air right now,
Yeah,
and the
me too.
bombing, the doctrine at the beginning was terrible. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
um, they could have gone to patrolling subs and been sort of a more effective, but it drew the 88s off the Eastern Front as well as at least some Messerschmitts,
yeah,
and it drew resources.
yeah.
And my big idea about Axis knowledge is the axis are like pizza dough, and if you can stretch the pizza dough, you somewhere in that
Mm.
pizza dough stretching, you can
Oh
break
yeah.
the pizza dough. Anyways, that's my sort of
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's a time that's definitely something I call it over optioning. That's
ah
to me, it's a term I make to myself. I don't know if I've actually shared that with someone. But I'll look at a board and I'll say, there's so many blockers around this area. So if I'm deciding whether I should put a guy up front or try to conserve him, well, I'm over optioning him way, to the moon and back over here. So yeah, let's just push, 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 push. Because yeah, maybe you can win in 3 of these 8 areas, but not in the other 5. So
right
yeah, over optioning. Yeah, and
over optioning.
that's the board game. I would say I'm just trying to tie history to the game here. So I would say that would be the game's way of uh, enabling this thing that you just discussed from history,
Yeah,
kind of
very
stretching
good.
them thin.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Let me just look. So you're involved, you are involved quite a bit at accessknowledge.org the most,
Yeah.
or would you say more at Facebook?
Oh, definitely the .org. I mean, the .org website is I'm more heavily involved there. I guess because games played through the forum, for anybody who doesn't know, you can play Access and Allies games by email essentially through the forum in a public setting. It's actually in a way more convenient to play that way than just by logging into your email all the time.
Sure,
And
sure.
then also there's serious discussions. Also, again, Kriegshund is there, Brian
Mhm.
Chapman there to answer your questions, and he is so quick on the draw.
Yeah.
Uh, he's like a Superman of board games, and it's just nuts to me how he's so involved. And so yeah, you can get the real answers quickly. If you go on to Facebook and ask for answers, okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love you all, but oh my goodness, what's
yeah,
going on over there? I use that mostly for advertising. It's
sure.
point.
I'm pretty sure that when you get to Facebook, you're getting people that uh, are they love the game but probably don't play a lot, or they're
Yeah, oh yeah.
teenagers. So I don't have the kind of time. I don't think I have the kind of time that most of the people at Access Knowledge org do.
Yeah,
And I'm always
oh,
slow
I
with my
see.
turns. And if I was a guy on the computer, during a 10-minute break, you could actually go over to,
Yeah,
10 hours a day, 8 hours a day, you could go over and do your turn and then go back to your job.
yeah,
And I have to do that in my, when I'm on my lunch break at UPS
right.
and sometimes, honestly speaking, I sit in my chair and I sleep. So, because I'm
Yeah,
a little 55 years old, still doing UPS. So I got
yeah,
2 more years to go, Lord willing, and then
yeah.
I'll move
I
on to
still
more.
I like your videos though. Sometimes I hear that the things going on in the background, but you're still there knocking out turns.
Trying, man. I'm
Yeah,
swinging.
that's good.
Uh, yeah. Um, so, history buff tournaments. We've covered a lot.
Yeah.
So I did. I got a new feature. Okay, so if you were to, if I know you don't do house, I'm pretty sure you don't do house rules.
I try not. Well, okay, no, that's not true
Okay.
exactly now. So if quick detour, 1914 is a shockingly imbalanced game. It is
Okay.
a beautiful game engine. I think it is just a it's almost artistic. I love whoever
Mm,
came up with that, whoever developed I just the setup is I just-
yeah.
I'm just now, I didn't have any involvement in this, so I don't have any problem saying anything about it, but
Sure.
my goodness, what the heck? Like, I'm the last person to change anything. I think and I'll make a video about this whole concept later, but you can increase your what I call the risk profile to try to leverage advantage over the board without having to mess with again, this will just be too deep of a rabbit hole to go to in this interview, but that game is just far and away. I was like, oh my goodness. So I actually have 6 or 7 recommendations for,
Yes.
changing and stuff. So I'm not above it. I'm not
Yep.
above it. But
Okay.
otherwise, I'm hesitant. It's the last thing I want to do. I'll use it if necessary. Yeah, I'll do house rules if necessary.
Okay, so let's,
Yeah.
if you don't mind getting into the details a little bit there,
Yeah.
if you were to change, let's say, one rule in Classic, what do you think it would be?
Oh, boy, that is a good one and a tough one. If I was going to change one rule in Classic, um,
I have an answer right away, but
Yeah, never mind. Now I got it. It's to make the neutrals non-evadable.
oh, okay,
That's the one thing. If they
okay,
changed that, I would be screaming it from the mountain. That game is balanced. As long as you
okay,
use the restricted attack, the no new industrial complexes, those are both out-of-box optional rules. If
hmm
they had thrown in this one rule
yeah,
about, and I'll say specifically to anybody who knows Classic, thinks they know Classic, it's for Spanish Harlem.
yeah, yeah,
It's just too hard as Germany to do what you need to do on the East Front when you have this perfectly great launch pad into the
sure,
Western Europe. So yeah,
right,
I don't like Spanish Harlem.
okay, and then how about for 1914?
Ooh. Um, well, this is on my channel, but if there was just one, um, remove 6 Italian infantry and take off 8 Russian artillery, and just let the game.
6.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And there's actually a lot more that still needs to be done. Take off 6 Italian infantry and 8 Russian artillery, and you'll have a better time. You'll have a better
Sure.
time.
So the meta with that would probably be that. Is that including Russian Revolution or?
Yeah. So there's a thing I left out of there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're using that because
Okay. Okay.
not. I feel like the stigma or the going theory about that is that you need to not capture the capital. You need to make them go into revolution. But I have found that the best way to implement the game effect of that rule, that's what I like to say, the game effect of that rule is more like they have to defend inefficiently. And so capital capture is still on the table because the direct game effect of that rule is that Russia, to stay in the game longer, has to play in very inefficiently in ways they don't want to
Sure.
stay up. And so you can bleed them out and then you can take their capital without
Okay.
accepting the revolution. But
Sure.
anyway,
Ah,
neither here nor there.
very good. Okay. So and then anniversary.
They did a pretty good job on that. I think the Allies need an infantry, the British need an infantry in Egypt, and the Chinese need an infantry in, I think it's Yunnan with the P-40, or with the Flying Tigers unit. And then you're probably okay. Although, and the last time I played that actually was against Andrew, and he convinced me that that's probably not a good enough a bid.
Oh,
He, I've never met somebody who who had such a thorough understanding of the battle calculator, and it was very apparent in our game. And it was great for me, a great study for me because I don't think I'd ever played anybody who had that exceptional understanding of how to leverage every single bean on the board.
sure.
And it made me feel like, wow, he's still got me at 70% here, 60% here. I mean, battles in his favor. He never accepted any of them, and now I know why, thanks to your interview. It's like, what the heck? Who is this? Am I
Yeah.
not good enough for 70%? But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was like, wow, okay. And I had a 5 bid, so not a 6 bid, but a 5 bid. I put a tank in Africa. Okay, I could be wrong. So I'd say at least 6, at least
Hmm.
2 infantry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your bid is acceptable house rule.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because that game, Anniversary has 6 optional rules. I never thought of. Oh, well, let's see. To try to fill or to answer the actual question you said, like if you could change one rule.
One rule. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Wow, that's a good one. Um, well, now that we've had all this conversation about tech, it would be kind of cute to see what would happen if you cut the tech tree in half, or maybe cut the tech tree in half. I'll play tech if you've cut it in half, then I know I can plan better for what
Okay.
might come.
Tell me what you mean by cut it in half.
Well, they have 2 tables in there,
Yes.
and one is like naval and industrial or something, and then the other
Sure.
one is air and ground,
Yep.
something like that. And maybe just pick 6 and put it in a table,
Oh, okay.
just one table, because
Mm,
I can't to plan for 12, because it's instantaneous. I'm assuming we're leaving that alone. So if I
yeah.
change one rule, change the tech back to 6, there, change it back
Okay.
to 6, it'll make it less drowning in OMGs when they finally do make a breakthrough. Yeah.
I'm playing a game right now with a guy named Schultze, and we
Oh,
have
okay.
we are. I'm a big tech enthusiast. I'm mad about it. So
Yeah, that's all
my,
right.
my big statement, I'm sure you've heard me say it, and I'll say it again, is if you're playing like if you're playing classic without tech, you're playing a 1942 game, not a
Yeah.
World War II game.
Yeah, I hear you.
Play if you're playing 19 global 1940, you're playing a 1940 game for 8 years in a row, as opposed to injecting tech. In fact, I would say that
Yeah.
the in I don't know if you're familiar with G40, but the
Yeah.
mechanized infantry in that attack at a 2, which is fairly representative of the light tanks of the early war.
Mech
Uh,
infantry attack at 1 in Global 40.
but if they're advanced
Oh, I'm sorry, with the tech. Roger
with the
that.
tech, they're 2. They attack at a 2. So in some ways, I've thought about coming up with okay. So say you got the setup right,
Hmm.
and You change the setup. No one sees it, and then someone you can do this for money honestly
Hmm.
if you got good at it, and you say, I'm going to give you a setup. Each of you gets to look at the setup. You get to adjust your bids. Go.
Yeah.
So you every game is a fresh game.
Yeah, right. I see
And
where
in
you're going.
and in one of my things was take off most of the German tanks, replace them with advanced mechs, and
Hmm.
you've produced light tanks.
Ah, ah, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I could get on board with that. But
Yeah.
it's funny. Now that I've had some experience helping out, uh, I have found myself in positions where I feel like I'm saying, look, I just play these things. I don't design them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's for someone else. I'll just play
Hey,
them.
if you ever get a voice
Yeah.
at the table,
Okay.
tell them to put optional rules in the back,
Okay.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
the community will never accept house rules as a whole, but
Yeah.
they will accept optional rules,
I know.
or they
Right.
will accept tournament rules. So if
Yeah.
and of course you and I both know that the
Yeah.
difference between a tabletop game and an online game. I mean, online games can go forever. You could go for, and I think I
Yeah.
saw you in one game with Andrew.
Yeah, that was
You
the
told me that
anniversary.
you went
25.
25 turns, right?
Yeah, 25 or 26 even. It would have gone longer. It should have gone longer. I just threw in the towel. I didn't know who he was at the time, so
Sure.
I might have tried to hang on longer if I knew who I
But
was playing.
imagine that game in a
Yeah,
tabletop. You
yeah.
couldn't do it in a tabletop, or unless you
No.
left it up.
Yeah, that's not what we both did in that game is not possible over. I would just submit it's not possible over the board. Yeah,
And
right.
that's one of the things that I'm trying to push. And Gargantuan's the only one that said it before, and it said
Hmm.
the games are completely different. Tabletop, online, and even tournament is a different
Ah,
feel.
okay.
They're like three different games.
I That's true. I will say this though, as long as I can throw in this one caveat, generally speaking, the pressure points are the same in my
Yes,
experience.
sure, sure,
Uh,
sure.
so if you know where the certain pain points are and the other guy doesn't, it
Yes,
becomes very apparent very
yes,
quickly, even
right.
over the board.
Yes, right, right,
Um,
right.
but I will say this too, just to supplement that and to kind of tee up off of what you said here. I do think a better player is somebody who kind of plays in both worlds or who can play in both worlds.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. So one of the stories I love to tell is if you're Napoleon, the first time you see Leipzig is the first time you see Leipzig.
Yeah.
The first time you see, Rommel, the first time he sees, although he did fight twice at Alamein,
Yeah.
but the first time he sees it, he has to succeed. I mean, so
Yeah.
if we can, and that's what I call
I hear you.
immersive play, and that's that I don't care that 99% of the
Huh.
time I'll lose the game. I care that today I win the game.
Right.
So in that way
Yeah, I
of
hear you.
trying to see it the first time, read it, and go
Yeah.
for that's the true
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
So
There's definitely something to that. Interestingly enough, this is from the Army experience. You can be exposed to the mentality through practice, really. As weird as it
yes,
sounds, you can
yep,
actually be surprised enough to the point where, okay, the surprise sort of wears off when you've been surprised 10 times.
sure,
So
sure,
if the rules start to kind of fall into place. So I guess from Army experience, it's once you've done enough ambushes, the ambushes kind of, it doesn't matter what's being ambushed anymore. You're sort of just going through the motions. Um, Same with a fixed attack or reverse slope defense. I mean, or one of the things the army guys like to do is just start killing all your guys, and they'll kill your right hand man, your left hand man. They're putting you in. I don't know if there's any Star Trek fans out there, but the Maru scenario where uh, you're just in an unwinnable scenario, and they want to see how you react. But you
ah,
can be in that situation so many times where you're just like, okay, well, I see what's happening here, and so you'll go down swinging correctly, but
sure, yeah,
in terms of what you're saying, in terms of this game effect, yeah, you'll still the rules are still going to be the same. You're going to
yes,
learn how to exercise the rules the right way, and even though if the setup might change or the bid might be different, or what you were saying about the kind of, it sounded almost fog of war-ish. Okay,
Yeah,
that's okay too. You can still get good at that, and you can be
absolutely.
surprised and still be good at that. You can become a
Yeah,
better general in that way. It'll be all
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. I did at one point in time. I floated the idea that we would develop a tournament system or a play system in which, in order to become like a triathlete, that you would be good at
Oh
three
yeah.
different versions of the game, and that's the real winner, the real expert at the. Whether it be someone who is really good at classic, and then someone
Yeah.
who's also good at global, or someone's good at one of the theater games like D-Day.
Yeah, Dave and well, it's Dave mostly. When I was speaking to him at the tournament last and before this too, although I haven't talked to him recently, we're trying to do just that.
Oh wow,
We're trying to get this something together where we have uh, teams compete in different versions. So you kind of ping pong around to the different versions, but nothing concrete yet. We're working on
yeah,
it though. Yeah,
yeah,
good
yeah.
people in the right places are working on it.
The one thing I will say about 42, I don't know if you've noticed this online, but the
Hmm.
online audience for 42 is
Huge.
huge.
Okay, yeah, I have to
Um,
respect that.
so if you want to, you know, I got to start doing something with that, just to try to fish in that pond. So
Mhm.
maybe we can sort of bring them over from 42 to Global 40 or to some of the theater games. Or
Yeah, yeah. Um, all I can say to that is, I'll help out if anybody has any idea. Yeah, I'd love to help. I'm all about getting more people, more and better people. So let's get them
excellent,
in. Yeah.
good.
If anyone's listening where I can help with my little channel, then I would absolutely do that. Yeah.
Hey, so what do you think of the battle calc? Tell us your thoughts about battle
Sure.
calculators, and
Yeah.
in different scenarios, tabletop or online or
Oh,
tournament.
I appreciate this question. And I guess I'm mostly responding to Facebook comments. But I will submit here and now. I think that we need to start just as a community accepting these. Just start accepting these because the counter arguments to their not being used, even in tournaments, are just so. I cock my head and scratch. Huh? It's a waste of time. It'll take forever. Are you kidding me? Whose turns don't take forever as they are now? What do you think
Sure.
they're doing? Everybody's adding things up and dividing by six in their head, and that takes how quick a battle calculator works? And
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be like on your cell phone. I get that, there's a problem with tournament. I think I might strictly speak from just face to face because over the board or over online, this is not a question.
Sure.
Everyone's using them, so you just embrace it and move on. And it
Right.
didn't do anything poor to that community. If anything, I hate, some might not like hearing this, but online players seem to clock over the board players. If you don't have a lot of online experience, you're probably going to get clocked. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it might have something to do with pressure points, but the battle calculator helps. You see things enough and over again that you realize this is more likely to work than that. Um, but I wish some of the stigma would go away around the battle calcs. And one other thing I was thinking of recently was, what if the coordinator just had one? Maybe you don't have the players have one, but instead of I have seen someone pull out a piece of paper and start doing addition and division on their. I'm just like, God, I'll just give you, I'll give you the thing. Just don't let this be the reason your turn takes an hour.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
uh, so
Sure.
just have a moderator or the tournament coordinator. Hey, what's this? And have them just sit there with a laptop. It says this is this and this is this. If you don't want the players to have them, fine. But maybe the coordinator could have one and just speed things up. Like goodness
Sure.
gracious.
Sure.
God.
It
Oh,
is. I have told people that play tabletop that you'll be shocked. You get into these high number battles, and you think to yourself, siphoning off 2, 3 troops, no big deal. And I'm like, dude, it can drop the percentages by 20%,
oh yeah.
thirty
Yeah,
percent,
yeah.
and then
That's
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Once a battle is what I call on the spectrum. If it's say you've got a battle at 90%, depending on the piece count, but generally speaking, yeah, you just make small tweaks and the thing will start plummeting in other
Big time.
directions
Yeah.
until it reaches 100 or zero. So that's why I say on the spectrum, because many battles, and a lot of there's a general, I would say, I play a lot of different players online, and I would say, generally speaking, most people are pretty conservative. So they would like to, they don't want to risk battle. The 50-50 is not something anybody wants to
No,
engage in. Yeah.
no.
So, yeah.
So tell me a couple exciting stories, pretty intense. Um, let me ask this first.
Yeah.
Who's the best players you play?
Um, well, hands down, okay, you won't have heard of him, but is Ragnell 804. He goes by that name on the internet or on the .org. Um, Fairly modest in the world of Axis and Allies, but this person has this fellow, he's a fellow Navy officer. He he uh he has this ability to pick up. He'll play, first off, he'll play any version.
Oh, okay.
And he's the only other guy that I feel plays as much as I do. At least he's on the forums. Just there it is, Ragnar 804, Ragnar 804. I'm like competing with him in terms of name position on the board. And he'll play any version, and it takes him like a game, maybe not even in the middle of the game. He'll have like he came off a Global 40, played Classic, then he bounced over and played Europe, the original Europe, and he played 1914. He's playing me D-Day, and he is extraordinarily lethal. He's just it's just pretty shocking.
Yeah.
So in terms of trigger time, I've definitely spent the most with him, and of all the folks that I've pulled the trigger with and played games with over online consistently enough to have an opinion, he's the best. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm
Awesome.
afraid of him every time I almost lost Classic to him. God, I was the Allies, and he almost clocked me over the head with Axis, and all he had was Russia restricted. So I had Spanish Harlem open to me as an option. I had the industrial complex build, and I was just shocked, like, oh my goodness, like I can't keep it together. And he's still doing well in that tournament. There's a current Classic tournament going on, and he's in it, and it's just wow, wow. And how many games has he played? Three? He played like three, and now he's like he's sweeping up a tournament. I'm like,
Wow.
wow, yeah,
That's
it's,
amazing.
yeah. He didn't know that game at all, but he's in there taking heads.
You got any big dice roll stories that
Yeah, again, um, uh, yeah, I inflicted one on somebody that many people in the YouTube community will know. I think it's 5 out of 7 hits with AA. But that was a YouTube war. His name shall be renamed nameless. He didn't want me to talk about it, but he's otherwise fairly public about it.
sure.
He shares this with his audience, but he doesn't uh, for reasons he's explained to me offline, doesn't want to say who inflicted this on him. But and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That was pretty shocking. Oh, and Ragnar. Okay, my other one. I have to say this because Ragnar 804. He once he played 3 games of Classic. The first
Yep.
3 games he ever played. Once, two were against me, and one was against another fellow. But they were happening simultaneously. He didn't know anything about Classic, but he understands there's tech. He throws dice in one game. I think 2 or 3, gets a 6, gets heavy bombers. He does it, he rolls like 2 dice in one game, gets a 6, get heavy bombers. And in the third game, he rolled like 4 dice, picks up a 6, and picks up heavy bombers. That beat that for me. If anybody has a dice story out there, that's the one you have to
Wow.
look up. I
Wow.
tell him I will go to my grave and never forget that one. I've never seen anything like that.
That's
Stunning.
cool. Well, like I said, we're playing tech right now
Oh
with
yeah.
Schultze, and his luck is just and my luck is pathetic, and his luck is he just in last game
Oh
I had a couple of screenshots that I shared with the as a community post.
yeah.
I could not believe how many. Anyways, but our current game
Yeah.
is that you pick one dice, one tech, first time for free. All tech is free,
Okay.
and then the next turn, the opposite nation, for instance, with the Axis, I picked war bonds. Now
Yeah.
the second turn, the Japanese roll a dice. They choose which chart and then they roll a dice,
Yeah.
and they automatically get that if they. So no payment. So
Okay.
there will be a new tech for each side every turn. So, anyways,
Ah,
it's just a.
okay.
I love tech, and I
Yeah, yeah,
try to put it in my games. This is
yeah.
a new feature here. You are the first one.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
I'll try not to disappoint. Let's do
So
this.
we owe a debt of gratitude to Larry Harris Jr., and I am going to give you an opportunity right now
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
to speak to Larry Harris Jr. if he happens to come across this, and I will make sure I know him,
Yeah.
so I will let him
Wow.
know that that this is out there. So
Well, obviously, I think I've already mentioned it before, but it's something else to, I mean, access means a lot to different people, but isn't it bizarre that through, I mean, I wasn't born when he made this thing, and neither was my wife, and yet, in 2017, we were using this. It was more than just therapeutic. Like it
yeah.
crutched us through one of the toughest times in our lives, and so he
Mhm.
obviously made a game that meant a lot to means a lot to a lot of people. And uh, I don't even know how to phrase it. Just well, thank you, obviously. Like what else can I say it but thank you, because that was a very tough time, and Access and Allies made it a lot easier. As funny as that is to say, but
Yeah.
and it takes a special person with a special ability to create something like that. And I don't know anything about the thought processes that he went through and the development, although I'm aware of not Xeno, the first editions of the game, Jedco and the other one. Um, but still, at the end of the day, wow, well done. Like seriously, congratulate. I would just want to pump his hand, shake his hand. Like, thank you. This meant a lot to more people than I think you know. Um, I just appreciate everything that you've done for me in my life. Speaking for myself, helping us through
Right.
that tough time. Even though you never met me, never met my wife. In a way, we've sort of met you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to end. Hey, it's been so good talking to you. I think probably, like I said, if I can make this happen, where you and I are sitting across on a laptop and you're sort of analyzing it, I think you'll be one of the
Yeah.
first guys I call. Gamer
Thank you.
Man maybe first, and then maybe you to just review a game.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
all right.
Anytime.
Well,
Love
thank you
talking
for
about it.
your channel, and
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you for your hard work. You're very diligent. You're very detail oriented. I appreciate
yeah.
both those things. You're a deep thinker, obviously,
Yeah, thank
and
you.
those are all great
Okay.
attributes. So very thorough.
You're very kind, and thank you for doing this too, because we were speaking offline before this interview started, just for everybody knows that Crockett is the only person that does this, and he actually does it quite well. I think you have a talent for interviews, and I listened to all of them in preparation for this one, and I was surprised. I thought it was well done. I think
Thank you.
you asked good questions, so appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. All right. Well, I am going to try to get out of this every time I forget how to do it. So, but
All right.
thank you. Thank you so much, and it's been good talking to you, Ryan.
You too. Anytime.
Bye bye.
Bye now. And then we
We are. Are you sure you want to stop recording?